Wonderful. So many patient people. Thanks for your patience. Okay, with a little bit of delay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the European Conference for Social Work Research 2025 in Munich. Great. Thank you so much. It's going well so far. I never got so many applause for just one sentence, actually. So my name is Florian. I have the questionable honor of being the chair of the local organization committee, a role which I don't wish to any enemy of mine, actually. But other than that, it's pretty cool as well because, I get all the honor to stand here, and then there's colleagues who do at least as much work as me, and they don't stand up here. So yes, I'm looking at you, Wolfram and Carolyn, and many others. So setting up such a speech, I'm trying to hurry up a little bit because we're already delayed, but I was thinking about what to tell you. And due to my role, probably I should tell you something about the conference organization, stuff like airport strikes and maybe, cancellations on short notice, a myriad of requests for rescheduling my session to here and there, but you know how it works. So then I thought, maybe start with something connecting to the main topic of the conference, democracy. So I could talk about geopolitical crisis and recent elections, stuff like that. But you know all that. You don't need me to tell me that we live in crazy times, right? And then I thought, maybe I tell you something about where the conference takes place, in Germany. But you probably know most of the stuff you need to know about Germany as well. I mean, usually we know at least 1 or 2 or 3 things about a country when we hear its name, and it's more or less accurate, usually. So, and that's why I'm going to tell you a story, a little story that you might not have heard before. Well, I've told it before. I've told it at the wonderful Vilnius conference last year. Who was in Vilnius? Ah, great. Who was at the closing session? Okay, it's not too many. So I'm going to tell the story anyways because I told it there. Just briefly, a little Bavarian tale about a Bavarian railway worker called Aloysius. And so Alois, a very typical Bavarian name actually. And so he's working, he's a railway worker, and he has this, you might have heard about this, Bavarian coziness. He's very cozy, actually he's so cozy, he's working so slow, one day he just dropped dead. So he falls down, and then some angels show up and bring him to heaven. They give him a new name, Aloysius, his angel name, and he's standing in front of St. Peter, and he's going to explain the rules to him. So he says, so in the morning from 6 to 12, you got to sing Hallelujah. And then from 12 to 6 again, you got to pray, and after that, you're going to sing Hallelujah again. And he's not very amused about this, but he sits there on his cloud and starts singing Hallelujah a little bit. And then after a while, there's an angel coming by, and Aloysius is asking, when do we get beer? And this guy says, oh, we don't have beer here in heaven. Sorry, there's just water. And that freaked him out completely. So he thinks, I thought I was in heaven, and they don't have beer here. So he's really grumpy, and he's swearing a lot, and he's avoiding the rules and stuff like that. And all the angels, they're really like, what's happening here? We are not used to somebody being so loud. So they're complaining, and then Aloysius is brought to God. And God is looking down on him and thinks, oh, well, yes, a Bavarian. And so he thinks, well, I need from time to time at least to get rid of this guy just to keep everything nice and cozy here in heaven. And so therefore, I'm going to send you from time to time down to earth to do some duties for me. First thing he does, he gives him a letter and says, bring this one to the Bavarian government. It's divine orders for the Bavarian government on how to rule a country properly. So he goes down to earth, he walks straight into the Hofbräuhaus, you might have been there before, and he's ordering his first Mass. Which is a liter of beer. And he drinks it, and he orders another one. And he drinks it, and so it goes. And some say he's still sitting there drinking his beer, and he completely forget about bringing the letter to the Bavarian government. And so, why am I telling you this? The end of the story is the Bavarian government is to this day waiting for the divine orders on how to rule a country properly. So when this story was released back in 1911, the author of the story, Ludwig Thoma, he got fined because of that. Lucky enough, you can say something like that today. We have freedom of speech, press freedom, and all these other good things that come with democracy. And so, which could be a better place, actually, to talk about democracy, and especially in social work, other than Bavaria and Munich. So again, welcome to this conference, which is all about embracing democracy in social work, practice, and research. Okay, so you don't want to listen to me all the time, probably, even though I like myself hearing talking, as you can tell. And I'm not completely gone, don't worry. But we have some speakers today that I'd like to bring here on the stage, who have something to say maybe a bit more interesting than my little stories. And so our first guest, he actually contributed quite a bit to the organization of this conference. So he really knew what he was doing because he was chair of the local organizing committee back in 2021 for the European Conference for Social Work Research in Bucharest, Romania. He's a full professor for social work since 2016 at the Bucharest University, and he has a myriad of super important titles. Look him up. It's really interesting, but I won't tell you about them right now because we don't have the time to. So, yeah, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Florine Lazar, the Vice Chair of the European Social Work Research Association.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Guten Abend. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to open the conference in Munich. Welcome to the European Social Work Research Conference. And I want to start by saying thank you to the Catholic University of Applied Sciences in Munich and to the local organizing committee who made such a great job already. And when I will tell you about the conference and the submissions and what we have, you will understand that already is a success before even starting. We have had a record number of over 900 submissions of people wanting to join the conference, to come over to Munich for this event. Unfortunately, due to capacity of the places that we can host the events, only about half of them could be accepted. Nevertheless, apart from more than 450 people who registered to present a paper during the conference, about 700 altogether registered. So we have, I would say, a record number of people wanting to come to present their topics, their research, their interests. And even today we have had these special interest groups with many lively and interesting discussions that I've heard from many of the colleagues that I encountered and who are very happy to be here and to start the conference. So this is something to consider when you think why you are here, that you are in a family of social work researchers and academics, and consider that if you are for the first time, consider this as the first day of a beautiful friendship. If you are for another time, not your first time, maybe, I don't know, 10 or 14 times, as the conference already has a history, you know already that you are within a family. So welcome and have a good conference during the next 2 days. Thank you.
Okay. Now, thank you so much, Florine. Our next guest is a very special one. I gotta look on my little letter here a little bit, because, so it's not a speaker, actually. Whoa, this is me. You don't want to see me. It's not a speaker, actually. You don't want to listen to speakers all the time. Sometimes you need a little bit of relief, so to speak. And so the next guest is really very special. And honestly, their contribution today is way more than just loosening up the program. So their name is quite interesting, and I need to explain it. The dance group is called Schwublattler, and we have a very typical Bavarian dance which is called Schuhblattler. It's a traditional folk dance which is typical for the Eastern Alps, but especially for Bavaria. So the word Schuh means literally shoe, like the thing you wear, right? And it gives the dance its name due to the fact that performers stomp and clap and strike the soles of their shoes and also other parts. Now, back in 1997, a small dance group added a W to the shoe in the name, yielding the word Schwul. And so Schwul is a reference to the German word schwul, which means gay. Now, I'm delighted to have these very special guests here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the very first gay Schuhblattler dance group who are cultural ambassadors of Bavaria, and beyond that, simply absolutely great guys. Please welcome the Schwublattler. Simply awesome. Thank you so much. Great. I would love to be able to dance like that, or dance in general. My wife wants to dance with me as well from time to time, but I keep telling her there's people who make music and people who dance to music, and I make music, so I can't dance. And yeah. Okay, so next up, we have a small, minor program change, because one of our guests, she needs to leave in, well, a couple of minutes, actually. She has to go to a very interesting other event, which I might tell you about later because she needs to leave. But yeah, I'll still introduce her. She has a very important role. She's the third mayor of the city of Munich. And interestingly, she also graduated as a social worker at my university, the KSH Munich. So looks like I have a bright future in politics, actually. Her position underscores the dedication to public service and urban development. In her role, she focuses on enhancing community welfare through various initiatives, including the support for social programs, promotion of inclusive urban development, and fostering cultural activities. Her commitment to social equity and community engagement has been instrumental in shaping policies that address the diverse needs of Munich's residents. Ladies and gentlemen, Please welcome Verena Dietl.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear honored guests and colleagues, as mayor, I'm pleased to welcome you in our beautiful city of Munich. For those of you who are wondering why I'm wearing a dirndl, I think it's perfect for this evening for you because it's the normal Bavarian dress. Tonight is not the Oktoberfest, of course. It's only in September in Oktoberfest. Tonight is the traditional Politiker der Blecken on Nockerbert, to which I will be heading later, and I thought, why not wear my dirndl today to this conference? And I didn't know before that there is so much Bavarian history this evening. Having the European Conference of Social Work and Research take place here this year, especially at the university that has trained and shaped me, is an honor for me, and also for the city of Munich. On behalf of the city of Munich, I would like to warmly welcome you, all of you. I'm glad that you are all here to discuss a topic that is of great importance to our city and its residents. In a time when our society faces many challenges, it is more important than ever that we cannot rest on having democracy and democratic values stipulated in laws or textbooks, but also actively live it in our daily work in the social sector. Social work also aims to help people in difficult situations, to give them a voice and support them in their self-empowerment. By integrating democratic values into our work, we not only respect the rights and dignity of each individual, but also ensure that everyone can have a say. Munich is a vibrant and diverse metropolis, faces many challenges. Whether it is reception and integration of refugees, support for families in need, our assisting people in crisis situations, social work plays a central role in this. It is not only a service provider, but also an important partner that helps individuals improve their living condition and enable active participation in social life. In particular, important to me that we all, now and in the future, commit ourselves with sustained dedication to the concerns of various target groups, be it in counseling, school social work, our support for the elderly and people with disabilities. We can only overcome social isolation, promote integration, and shape coexistence in our colorful city by being active and living up to our goals and values. In my opinion, promoting democracy is directly linked to addressing the issues of distrust in authorities that are festering these days. Anti-democratic sentiments can arise from different factors. Economic and social inequalities can undermine trust in democratic institutions. When people feel that their voices are not heard, or that political decisions are not in their interest, it often leads to frustration and reaction. Additionally, populist movements can contribute to anti-democratic trends by inciting fears and promising simple solutions to complex problems. A crucial aspect of this is political education. It is therefore important for our society to actively engage with those challenges to help strengthen trust in our democratic systems. I see an outstanding responsibility for us as a municipality to take on this educational mandate and fulfill its responsibility. From my experience, social work plays an indispensable role in this. The social sector in our city is big, and we pride ourselves for this. We know that social work and the broad offer of help is the key to a functioning social society, and through that a city worth living for everybody. So thank you again for asking me to speak today to you. I wish you an inspiring and a fruitful conference, and conclude with the still valid words of Gustav Heinemann for a just society. Man erkennt den Wert einer Gesellschaft daran, wie sie mit den Schwächsten ihrer Glieder verfährt. The value of a society is determined by how it treats its weakest member. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, so our next speaker is also from politics, and interestingly, he needs to leave in a couple of minutes as well, which makes me think if I really want my bright future in politics, because apparently these guys work 24/7. Yeah, so actually I'm really glad he could manage to come today, because he works for the ministry. And as you know, these guys really work 24/7, basically. He's a true Bavarian, born and raised here. He earned his doctorate in '95 with a dissertation on the exercise of economic power as unfair competition. Now, if that's not some social work stuff right there, it really sounds really interesting. So he held various leadership positions at Bavarian State Chancellery, including head of the Department for Economic Science and Media Policy. In January 2019, he was appointed as the head of office in the Bavarian State Ministry for Science and Art, where he plays a pivotal role in shaping policies that foster scientific research and promote the arts within Bavaria. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Hans-Dieter Jung.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests of this great conference, I think coming from the Bavarian government, my special difficulty of tonight is that you already have learned that the Bavarian government obviously is not in the divine possession of truth, but I try to handle this. Throughout history, the geographical center of Europe has been identified in very different places, but without a doubt, Bavaria lies at the heart of the European Union. And over the next 3 days, Munich is the undisputed center of attention of the European Social Work Research Association. Welcome to Munich, welcome to Bavaria, great that you are all here. It is the first time ever that this conference with participants from nearly 50 countries takes place in Germany. Therefore, I would like to thank the organizing team of the Katholische Stiftungshochschule München, the KSH, for their special effort. You did a very, very great job. Thank you very much. In my opinion, the Bavarian state capital is certainly a good choice, even outside the Oktoberfest season or depending on the point of view, especially then. The topic of your conference is embracing democracy in social work, practice and research. Without a doubt, this comes at the right time. Developments like a rise of authoritarian regimes and a growing mistrust towards liberal democracies across the world cannot leave anyone unaffected. Quite to the contrary, we must understand what is happening in the world, analyze why democracy is so fundamentally challenged, and find answers. And which discipline could be better suited for this than the science of social work? With its focus on people and how they live within a community, it provides indispensable insights. Social work research not only generates scientifically based knowledge and builds theories, but always strives for their transfer into practice. And I'm convinced learning from practice for practice is more important today than ever. Therefore, I would like to briefly introduce the Bavarian science policy on social work research and maybe present a little bit the framework conditions provided by our university. Bavarian, as you certainly know, is one of the most important science locations in Germany. It's home of 10 state universities, 17 state universities of applied sciences, as well as one university and 2 universities of applied sciences under church sponsorship, from which KSH is one of. In total, more than 400,000 students benefit from an outstanding science location. And now we are taking the next step with the so-called high-tech agenda Bavaria. The Bavarian state government has set up a massive investment program from 2019 to 2027. Bavaria is spending an extra volume of 5.5 billion euros for science and research. The focus of this program lies in fields that will determine the success and the wealth of our society in the future. Computer science, AI, quantum computing and nuclear fusion are the key fields of our high-tech agenda. But our understanding of high-tech, and this is important, goes further than to the mere technological process. Our high-tech agenda is based on a fundamental principle. Technology must serve the people. The funding, therefore, also promotes sectors like the health and nursing sciences, the humanities and social sciences. And with regard to the research field of social work, I would like to present at least some aspects. The first is we have expanded the places for first-year students in social work to a record high. 13 Bavarian universities offer courses of study in social work. In recent years, we have made additional resources available for the development of more study places in the field of social work. As a result, 400 new undergraduate places were created in social work over the past 7 years. The second is, in 2023, the Bavarian Higher Education Innovation Act came into effect. Its guiding principles for the Bavarian higher education system are agility, excellence, and innovation. For our universities of applied sciences, a decisive aspect of this reform is the emphasis on research. It goes hand in hand with a completely new possibility for research-intensive areas to receive doctoral rights. This has resulted in up to now 18 doctoral centers at our universities of applied sciences. The third, the Free State of Bavaria has created a specific funding program to strengthen research at University of Applied Sciences. In total, we support 44 research projects with 17 million euros. The aim is to quickly raise and expand the considerable research potential of young scientists, but also to support established professors. We want to expand individual research, to develop overarching structures for applied research, and to strengthen cooperation with partners from business and societies. Dear ladies and gentlemen, there can be no doubt science and research are essential for finding answers to the challenges of our time. Therefore, the Free State of Bavaria provides an outstanding research infrastructure. And we are convinced science benefits from a free flow of information without boundaries and from a broad and intense exchange of ideas. This is why I'm very pleased that Munich is the host city for this 14th European Conference for Social Work Research. I wish you all a fruitful exchange of ideas. Thank you for your attention and enjoy your time here in Bavaria. All the best to the conference. Thank you very much.
Now, keep facing technical issues. Switching slides remotely seems to be a problem, but here we are. Okay, even though we are a little delayed, I think we have a little more time for culture. Have we? Yes, I guess. So please, ladies and gentlemen, another round for the Schwubblattlers. Amazing. Thank you so much. I don't know about you, but when I hear this music, I always think it's time for a beer. Unfortunately, I'm here. So I remember back when I got my first professorship at the University of Eichstätt, the dean invited me to a personal talk. And he said, "Congratulations, Mr. Spensberger. Now there's only two people left who can tell you what to do. God and the president of the university." Now I got to be careful what I say, because the next speaker is one of the two. Under her leadership, and now you think you already know who I'm talking about, but it could still be God at this point. So under her leadership, the KSH has continued to make significant contributions to social work education and research, emphasizing the integration of theoretical knowledge and practical application. Her vision ensures that the university remains at the forefront of addressing contemporary social challenges through education and community engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president of my university, the KSH Munich, Birgit Schaufler.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues from all over Europe, as president of the Catholic University of Applied Sciences here in Munich, known as KSH for short, it's a very special pleasure for me to welcome you to this opening ceremony today. You've chosen Munich as the venue and placed your trust in us. Thanks for that. We at KSH are very proud to be your host for the next 2 days. And we will do everything we can to make you feel at home. We want you to be able to work undisturbed and go home with the very best memories of KSH in Munich. What should you know about KSH? KSH is funded by the Free State of Bavaria and the Catholic Church. With about 2,400 students and almost 80 lecturers, KSH is one of the smaller Bavarian universities, but it's one of the most important Bavarian players in higher education qualification for social, health, and educational professions. We offer bachelor's and master's programs in social work, nursing, health, midwifery, early childhood education, and religious education. In addition to the campus in Munich, here in Heidhausen, we also have a wonderful campus in the traditional Benigbeuern monastery on the edge of the Alps. KSH was founded at the beginning of the last century at the time of pressing social challenges. From this tradition, our social work degree programs has evolved over the decades, and we are proud that today 360 students annually starts a bachelor's degree program in social work at KSH. Upon graduation, students can go into practice or choose between an academic master's program, degree program in social work, and other master's programs in education and management. For many years, we have been supporting young academics in their doctoral studies together with the universities. For example, Mr. Spensberger. Recently, the universities of applied sciences in Bavaria have also been able to obtain the doctoral right. We heard it from the ministry, which is why the KSH submitted an application for an independent doctoral right in the fields of social work, of participation and care earlier this year. We hope for a positive response in the early summer. KSH stands for practical research in the fields of social work, health, care, and education, and I would like to say we are very successful in this. For example, you have the largest volume of third-party funding of any church-run university of applied sciences in Germany. We think beyond subject boundaries and support interdisciplinary projects with value and impact for society. As a higher education institution in EU faced with increasing nationalism and populism, KSH sees its scientific mission as a responsibility to actively participate in the development of a European educational and research area. The ECSWR fits perfectly with these strategic goals. Dear researchers from Northern, Southern, Eastern, and Western Europe, your work is relevant. In the face of far-reaching social changes and global threats, the topics you deal with these days are more important than ever. For the next 2 days, I wish you a wide range of expert suggestions, enriching discussions, and a wonderful time with us in Munich. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now, I remember when I first joined the Ezra board, I was a PhD student. It's not long ago, actually. It was in Edinburgh, back in 2018. Anybody's been to Edinburgh in 2018, the conference? Oh, yeah. Ezra board members don't count. So I remember me entering the room, and there were about like 20 professors from universities across the board. I stood there in absolute awe and admiration. Yeah, I mean, apparently you need to go a long way to learn that we all boil with water, right? But anyways, ever since I'm part of the wonderful Ezra family, and our next speaker has been contributing quite a bit to Ezra. On top of that, she has contributed quite a bit to social work research by publishing extensively, especially on children and young people in care, a field in which she worked as a social worker for 16 years. On top of that, she is lucky enough to live on one of the most beautiful islands that I know. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Karen Winter from the Queen's University in Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm just move the microphone down. First of all, I want to say thank you to Florian and everyone involved in the local organising committee. I know we've given them a round of applause, but if we could do that again, I think they would love it. Thank you so much. Many of you will have arrived at this venue today, and this is all that you see. But behind the scenes today, we've watched Florian change his outfit several times. We've watched Florian here, then we've watched him on his bicycle going there, and then he's come back again. He's been everywhere, all over the place, all day with his team. So thank you very much for your efforts. I'd also like to thank the President and our federal government speaker, and indeed the Mayor, the third Mayor, for introducing us to the city, the society that you live in, and the contribution that the university makes to that society. We are very honoured to be here and sharing everything that Munich and the university has to offer. The board is also here, and I'd like to say hi to all our board members at the front who help the association in its roles and responsibilities. like many of you in the association, it's important that you know that board members have been involved in some deep thinking and discussions regarding the role of the association in relation to some of the global events and challenges that we have heard about in the talks today. Those discussions are very much live and remain ongoing. And you will see later on in my talk that there is a possibility of you making a contribution to those discussions. It's also important to say that what unites us as a board and as an association is our absolute commitment to providing a space where diverse social work research is shared by people from diverse backgrounds, and where dialogue can take place, and where the principles of the social work endeavour, founded on democratic principles, human rights for all, and social justice for all, are at its core. So it is within that context that the board was delighted when the chosen theme of this year's conference was on democracy. We know how challenging that particular theme is, and we've seen in particular in the last few weeks how the very foundations that we think are set in concrete can be challenged. We hope that the theme of this conference offers the opportunity to highlight social work research from around the globe that draws attention to the critical role that social work has in safeguarding democratic principles. Through community engagement, empowerment, advocacy, social workers all try to serve as catalysts for democratic participation. Our work, whether it's with babies, infants, children, older people, all amplifies voices that might otherwise go unheard, ensuring that democratic processes are inclusive and responsive to the needs of all citizens. You'll notice, therefore, that reflecting this, the programme contains keynote speakers, posters, and presenters whose work reflects global concerns. We have presentations that focus on the impact of war and conflict, and we have presentations that reflect the very diverse governments in which social work is delivered. You'll also notice that this year in the programme, and acknowledging the context that we're now in and the concerns that you as members of the association have, we have decided as part of our programme to offer opportunities for our members to participate in facilitated dialogue. Run by two trained facilitators, Jassy Dennison and Catherine Yates, these provide a space for you to engage in dialogue regarding issues that are of importance to you. You will have received an email asking for you to make choices if you wish to engage in facilitated dialogue. It would be incredibly helpful to Jassy and Catherine if you could make your choices by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That gives them an opportunity to work out the themes and the structure of the programme for the day. Please do remain for the General Assembly, which follows the opening ceremony, to which you're all invited. You're all participants of the General Assembly, and you will hear a few more details then. Lastly, we really hope that you have a productive conference and enjoy the programme, and more importantly, enjoy each other's company. Our very best wishes to all of you. Thank you. Now, I haven't left the stage, not because I'm going to do a dance for you, but I also have the honour of awarding prizes. Each year, as you know, we run a prize for the best doctoral work and also the best work by an academic. This year, unusually, we are awarding the prizes to 2 outstanding doctoral students and their doctoral thesis. And those 2 people who I am going to invite to the stage are Delita Mori and Jonathan Berg. So please do join me. I'll invite both to say a quick few words.
Well, this is really a tremendous honor for my 30 seconds of fame. I was the first one to go to university in my family, so my mother will be so proud. And of course, as you know, it takes a village to write an academic research paper. So I have to thank, of course, my co-authors and also especially the social work research community, for I presented the preliminary analysis of this paper in Amsterdam, and you guys really helped me get along this paper, and thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I would like to thank the committee for the trust in my work, and I also would like to thank many people that supported me in doing this work. First and foremost, my supervisor, Silvia Farjon, for the incredible support during my PhD. And also, it was really important for me sharing with my Italian social work researcher community for the encouragement also in my work, but especially for the parents that accepted to participate in my research and for sharing stories of struggle, but especially of hope and care for themselves and their children. And the meeting with them was the most interesting part of my work, and I hope also this came through the article that is receiving this award. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Guess you wanted to steal my notes. Thank you so much. And thank you, Karen, especially for the kind words regarding my role in the conference organization. But I will say it again, it's much appreciated, but it also takes a village to organize a conference. Oh, and regarding me switching clothes, you might wonder, why would you do that? Wasn't that weird? So maybe you need to know that the last time I compiled the clothes that I'm wearing was probably like 20 years ago. That day I met my today's wife. Yeah. Literally, when I go to the university, leaving the house, when I open the door, there's some voice in the back who would say, "Do you want to leave like that?" No, of course not. I was just checking how cold it is. Anyway, now our next guest represents the European Association of Schools of Social Work. And I remember the first time I went to one of their conferences, which was in Madrid in 2019. A huge conference, and boy, it was so hot. Not only the conference was huge, so was the venue. And so I got this lunch voucher, and I made my way across the campus. It felt like a 10-mile walk while it had 35 degrees, something like that. And so once I arrived, I got in line, and then it was my turn after like 15 minutes of waiting. And then they said, oh, you have a blue lunch ticket? We're sorry, only red lunch tickets here. The blue ones are in the building over there, which was the building where I started my journey, of course. And man, was I mad. I thought, like, why didn't you organize this conference better? But Lord, what did I know back then about conference organization? Like, I didn't even consider that it could be my fault. Probably somebody told me before how to deal with the vouchers, right? Anyway, our next guest works centers on integrating social work education across Europe, fostering collaboration among institutions and enhancing the quality of social work training. His efforts have been pivotal in promoting cross-cultural understanding and cooperation in social work education, thereby enriching the competencies of future social workers. I'm glad he's here. Welcome, Professor Mariusz Granosik, Vice President of the European Association of the Schools of Social Work.
Good evening. Am I the last one? I think so. Okay. We learned a lot about heaven's rules. So one of them is, the most applicable for me, is that the last will be the first. But a little bit more seriously. It's a great honor and also my private pleasure to be a part of this event. I think that social work, I understand practice and research, there are two sides of the same coin. And after very inspiring lectures by Michel Foucault, we know that the coin, there is an ability to change power relations in society, in societies, indeed. With respect to feminization and humanistic approach of social work, I would prefer to name that sides rather two sisters. But there is also the third sister, education. Unfortunately, those two sisters we will discuss at that conference. We'll meet the third one in late June in Salzburg, not far away from here, because there we have the European Conference on Social Work Education. So thank you again for this pleasure and honor to be a part of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariusz. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm totally up for, unfortunately, the last round of the wonderful Schwubblattlers. Terrific. Thank you so much. May I ask you guys to come back on the stage just for a second, please? Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Really much appreciated. This is just a little thank you. It's a gingerbread heart, a very typical Oktoberfest thing, if you might know, with the logo of the conference, just for you to remember or to eat, whatever you like.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to have a cold one outside at the bar. You really deserve it. Thank you so much for being here. Great. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I wish I could do that. I just can't. I'm trying, but I can't. Okay, so our last speaker before today's keynote has some really important information for you about the European Social Work Research Journal, which launched recently in 2023. It's ESRA's flagship social work research journal. Setting this up was quite a process, which took years, and many ESRA board members contributed quite a bit to make it happen, namely Inge Brüderup, but also Ozan Selçuk, and many, many more. Ever since, a wonderful editorial team is taking care of the journal, dissemination of high-quality research, and the contribution to the advancement of social work knowledge and practice across Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lars Ugerhøy. Du brauchst die Slides, du brauchst die...
I can do a little.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, I already got it. Whoops, here you go.
Good. Thank you very much for this opportunity to just say a few words about our journal. And I am actually talking about our journal because this is a collaboration between ESRA and Policy Press. So it's actually your journal. And I'm just going to say a very few words about the journal. And during the conference, I hope that you could approach us, talk to us. And when I talk about us, we have the two other editors, Elaine, you're down there, and Anna, you're somewhere, yeah, up there. So please approach us if you want to talk about the journal. Now, the journal, which I still call a toddler, has now learned to walk and is expected to get an impact factor next year. Now, toddlers do have impact, but I think maybe it's the first time a toddler has an impact factor within some of the first years. We have now issued 7 or published 7 issues. So thank you very much for those of you who already submitted articles for the journal. The present issue, it is actually just launched, and this is free for you during this conference. So if you don't know about the journal, you have the possibility of having a look at the last issue. Now, besides the research articles, we have 2 kinds of articles. Book reviews, well, it says itself what it is, but please, if you read any interesting books, or if you are writing a book yourself, please make sure that it also becomes reviewed in the journal. And then we have the second possibility, reflection, exchange, and dialogue. We call it the red articles. And through these articles, we provide a space for critical reflections, discussions. So it's not like it's only 5,000 to 2,000 words, but it's not like a small article. It is a discussion. So if you want to raise any kind of interesting research discussion, there is a possibility for this, and hopefully for others to join the same discussion. Besides the special issue from the Vilnius conference, the conference we had last year, which will be launched this June, the first special issue from a special interest group will be launched this fall, and it's from the DARSIC SIG group. So we hope that more of the SIGs will join the journal and write special issues. In the next 2 years, we will have also 2 special issues each year. So we have 1 open issue, and then we have the conference issue, and then we will have another special issue. We will have 2 special issues for the next couple of years too. Right, and the special issue from this conference, I want to announce this now. Normally we just send it out after the conference, but we will be co-editing the special issue which will be launched next year in June, together with Caroline Auner. Are you here in the room? I don't know, but Florian Spensberger, you are here in the room, and we will... oh, you're there. I cannot see anything from here, but good. But also approach us if you have any questions concerning the special issue. And again, the title of the special issue is the same as the conference, Embracing Democracy in Social Work Practice and Research. And we hope to get interesting papers. The good thing about sending an abstract after the conference is that you probably already worked out the abstract for your presentation. So it's easy going. Of course, you have to connect it directly to the conference and to some of the sub-themes at the conference. And as you can see, the deadline for the submission will be the 30th of April. So, still some time to go. But we also need your help. Please subscribe as a reviewer all journals around the world have the problem of not having enough reviewers. So please subscribe as reviewers. And please also encourage librarians to subscribe to make sure that the journal is being read and is approachable around libraries in Europe and elsewhere. Sarah and Isabel, you're probably also somewhere out there in dark, but you will be at the Policy Press stand, and you will help people how to make it possible to approach librarians to subscribe as well. So we are looking forward to receive your abstracts, your articles, your read contributions, your book reviews, and reviews of articles. So hopefully enjoy the journal and enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Now, as I'm getting older, it's harder for me to hear things. I thought, why would you encourage Bavarians to submit? But apparently it's librarians. Okay, now we saved the best for last, of course. I am delighted to announce the very first keynote speaker of this year's conference. She actually used to be a professor for social work at my university, the KSH Munich. Well, apparently somewhere it's better, because she's not here anymore, but I'm just kidding. She currently holds a research chair in participatory action research at the Technical University of Applied Sciences in Würzburg, Schweinfurt. She is also research associate of the University of Johannesburg and director of the master's program International Social Work with Refugees and Migrants. Her main research is teaching promote knowledge and debate about discourses and concepts of sustainable development, global inequality, migration and mobility, civil society, as well as governance from post-colonial perspectives. Her emphasis is on social development and social work in Global South, whilst applying a political economy lens when it comes to inquiring differences and constantiations in the Global North. It's actually really inspiring to read her bio. She brings together 25 years of extensive research, teaching, and practice experiences in different positions within the broad areas of development, cooperation, social work, and migration. Please don't forget to take some notes during the upcoming keynote, which is titled Breaking Silence and Enhancing Solidarity, Results from Transformative Research, as we have opportunity for questions and discussions afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Tanja Kleibel.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to this conference. It's a real pleasure to be the first keynote speaker. I'm also a little bit nervous, of course. And thanks to KSH, and Florian has already mentioned it, I also passed through KSH immediately after my PhD, and I was teaching there for 2 years. So, yeah, I was told I have 45 minutes to talk, so relax. It's quite a while. And I'm going to be stressed a bit to talk for such a long time. Techniques are working, so let me start. I choose the title of my keynote, Breaking Silence and Enhancing Solidarity, Results from Transformative Research, just about a week ago, while in Nakala-Porto in northern Mozambique. As I reflect on the conclusion of a 3-year development project, I remain actively engaged and committed to staying connected for a longer time. and I will just quickly really show you the overview of my presentation and move on, as I will go into details just now. The picture you can see here captures the people most closely involved in the project. Members of community reference groups, the project implementation team, the research team, and staff from the implementing NGO, International Child Development Programme, ICDP. The project focused on integrating internally displaced persons into host families in war-affected northern Mozambique. The core strategies included community organizing and direct group and community-based cash transfers to 3 community reference groups. These efforts aim to collectively enhance the social security and well-being of both internally displaced people and their host families. The project was carried out with cultural and conflict sensitivity and supported by a participatory action research approach. This initiative was funded by Miserio, a German Catholic international development organization, as part of its commitment to exploring decentralized, innovative ways to decolonize its own development practice. My role was to design and lead the research strategy, train a local team in participatory action research, and provide support to the project implementation team based in Nacala. Before sharing my key research results, I want to highlight some global challenges that directly intersect with the socio-political realities of the project region. These challenges, while deeply affecting communities in Mozambique, are also prevalent across other Global South countries. I'm certain that you are familiar with these global issues, possibly more than I am, but I believe that insights from Mozambique can serve as a valuable example for understanding similar contexts. When I speak of sharing insights, I acknowledge that my role as a German social worker and researcher in this project in Mozambique has always been complex and sometimes contested. A Mozambican academic and close friend once introduced me at an African Studies conference by saying, "This is Tanya, a German researcher from Mozambique." Having spent nearly 12 years in the country since 2000, albeit with breaks in between, I find myself navigating the many boundaries that divide the world. I have learned from both sides, carrying the guilt of one and the resistance of the other. I will start with the huge challenge of economic inequality and extreme poverty, which is perhaps best summarized by the following statement. What matters most for your living conditions is not who you are, but where you are. Take a moment to examine the map on this slide. It reveals the region most affected by economic equality and extreme poverty, sub-Saharan Africa. The map also clearly shows that the poverty rate is very high in many countries south of the Sahara. Extreme poverty is widespread and exacerbated by intersecting inequalities in health, education, gender, and many other dimensions. This is also true for Mozambique, where regional and global economic inequalities and structures of poverty have become entrenched in post-colonial socio-economic hierarchies, which is reflected in the country's northern province of Nampula, the project region. You can see the red circle around the northern region of Mozambique and locate the place. Through a participatory baseline, we found that most people in the 3 neighborhoods where the project was implemented have an average monthly income of only 18 euros. The next slide shows how much land has already been allocated for the exploitation of the rich natural resources in northern Mozambique, especially gas and oil. As in Angola, Nigeria, or the Democratic Republic of Congo, these resource-rich regions of the world are characterized by extreme poverty, high unemployment, grievances against the post-colonial state, and armed conflict. In Mozambique, there are significant income gaps between the south and the poorer north, where paradoxically most natural resources are being exploited. A complex web of factors contribute to the extreme poverty, which is the 5th poorest region in the world. Poverty and conflict are further exacerbated by the effects of the global climate crisis. The climate crisis is one of the greatest challenges of our time, with reports of extreme weather events coming in daily. More than a century of burning fossil fuels and unsustainable energy and land use has led to dangerous levels of global warming, leading to rapidly increasing hazards such as more intense heat waves and heavier rains, increasing risks to human health and vital ecosystems. Communities living in coastal areas, such as those in Mozambique, are particularly vulnerable to climate change. They are not only confronted with slow onset chronic developments such as rising sea levels and warming oceans, but also with acute shocks of cyclones and flooding. Coupled with global inequality between and within countries and political instability, some regions are more affected than others. This applies specifically to poorer countries in the global south that are still struggling to recover from colonial oppression and post-colonial socio-economic inequalities. On top of this, international corporations, such as Total Energies in Mozambique, are exploiting natural resources and further destroying the coastal and marine environment through their practices. This neo-colonial resource exploitation and environmental degradation further exacerbates the situation. Therefore, many of the issues discussed so far related to the question of climate injustice in connection with capitalist exploitation of the environment and its people and colonial continuities. Both human and environmental rights are increasingly being disregarded as a result. All these factors come together in Mozambique, which is now the country most affected by climate change in Africa. In the last 4 months, 3 tropical cycles have hit the project region. 3 days ago, the last of these storms was Cyclone Jude, which caused death and further climate-related displacement. They contribute to conflicts, and in the case of Mozambique, since 2017, to a new civil war in the northern province of Cabo Delgado. Now, this graphic illustrates the steady rise in state-based conflicts across regions and over recent decades. Globally, the so-called age of turbulence is giving way to a world increasingly consumed by war. The statistics are alarming. In 2023, nearly 60 armed conflicts were ongoing, the highest number ever recorded. Over the past year alone, at least 200,000 people were killed, while more than 120 million individuals are now forcibly displaced, over half within their own borders. Today, approximately 2 billion people, 1/4 of humanity, live in conflict-affected countries. At the same time, global military spending has reached an unprecedented $2.4 trillion in 2023, a record high. Not all armed conflicts are the same. Wars take serious and various forms. International conflicts between states, hybrid wars involving regional powers and their proxies, internal civil wars, and coups or insurgencies that contribute to state collapse. What makes 2025 particularly dangerous is that all these types of conflicts are occurring simultaneously, are deeply interconnected, and face alarmingly few international safeguards to prevent escalation. The threat of global war should be taken seriously. For many Ukrainians, war has already become a transnational reality. With drones sourced from Iran, soldiers from North Korea, and missiles containing components from China. The war in Gaza has severely tested multilateral institutions and mechanisms designed for conflict resolution and human rights protection. The failure to enforce international humanitarian law, ensure the protections of civilians, and hold parties accountable has exposed the limitations of global governance structures like the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, and regional diplomatic efforts. Some experts argue that a hybrid global war is already our reality. Meanwhile, civil wars in Myanmar and Sudan continue to exact a devastating humanitarian toll, triggering regional crises that receive very little or no media attention in the global north. In other regions, organized crime-driven conflicts fueled by drug trafficking networks, gangs and militias are wreaking havoc in Brazil, Ecuador, Haiti, Mexico and South Africa. In some cases, causing more deaths than traditional wars. In some instances, civil wars and criminal interests overlap. This is precisely the case in northern Mozambique, where the extraction of natural resources has triggered mass displacement and fierce local resistance. Protests by affected communities have disrupted illegal drug trade, while multinational corporations, especially those extracting gas and precious minerals, have forced small local businesses off their land. Even before the outbreak of the current war, radical Islamist groups began gaining a foothold in the region. Today, the Islamic State exploits widespread discontent, economic hardship, and the historical post-colonial marginalization of the northern ethnic groups to fuel its insurgency, using brutal tactics that further deepen instability. This, in turn, exacerbates anti-Islamic sentiments and reinforces the social and political exclusion of many northern communities. Crucially, none of these conflicts are purely domestic. Each is entangled with international economic interests, underscoring the importance of analyzing the political economy of war. The war in Ukraine, for instance, has drastically impacted Europe's energy supply, accelerating gas extraction in northern Mozambique, even during armed conflict. This presents a stark cause and effect relationship. While Western nations pursue energy security and economic growth, the global South bears the brunt of escalating violence, political and economic exclusion, and severe human and environmental rights violations. In fact, Africa's political history is deeply marked by systemic political exclusion. Across the continent, individuals and groups have been denied political participation based on religion, ethnicity, gender, and other identities. In many cases, the exclusion is rooted in bigoted ideologies that deem certain groups inferior, an approach that was prevalent during the colonial era. At other times, exclusion is a deliberate strategy used by political leaders to maintain power and eliminate rivals, thereby consolidating control over state institutions. Post-colonial political exclusion remains a defining feature of many African states in the 21st century. It has become a tool for managing widespread structural crises, allowing ruling elites to suppress dissent and maintain control over political and economic systems. This serves the interests of multinational corporations, as it facilitates easier access to natural resources. In Mozambique, the ruling party Frelimo, originally a liberation movement against Portuguese colonial rule, has governed the country since independence. Over time, it has transitioned from a revolutionary force into an authoritarian regime, accused of election fraud, suppressing opposition, and violently quelling dissent. Following the October 2024 presidential elections, widespread protest erupted, challenging the fraudulent electoral process. Since then, more than 300 people have been killed, as public unrest escalated into an ongoing national revolt against the Western-backed government. I personally witnessed the brutality of state repression when I was caught into a roadblock during a violent protest in November 2024. During the demonstration, 2 children were killed by a special police intervention unit, ironically trained and funded through European Union support. This incident underscores the contradictions of Western international intervention, where financial and logistical support even strengthens oppressive regimes rather than fostering genuine democracy. Despite broad recognition of Africa's structural crisis and post-colonial struggles, many international responses remain non-emancipatory, assistance-based, and humanitarian-orientated. As liberation pedagogues and post-colonial scholars have pointed out, such interventions often fail to address root causes, instead offering temporary relief while reinforcing existing inequalities. In some cases, they even provide authoritarian regimes and their supporters with a humanitarian mask, lending them legitimacy while deepening the very conflicts caused by unresolved structural injustices. Many social and community workers find themselves employed in these development programs, which in the Global South are often branded as international development programs, a term that highlights their dependence on Global North funding. This financial reliance exposes a fundamental post-colonial challenge: the persistent economic and financial dependence on Global South nations, on donor agencies and companies from the Global North. In Mozambique, this dependency is strikingly evident in the $20 billion offshore liquid natural gas project led by Total Energies, currently the largest foreign investment in Africa. This project, while presented as an economic opportunity, is deeply entangled in neo-colonial resource exploitation, exacerbating local displacement, environmental destruction, and socio-political tensions. In 2024, in the middle of the thus far described crisis, the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, introduced its feminist foreign policy, emphasizing 5 central elements of development cooperation. It is based on human rights and the associated principles of non-discrimination and equal opportunities, participation and empowerment, transparency and accountability. Furthermore, it does not consider inequalities in isolation from one another, but takes into account various dimensions of discrimination that overlap. Finally, feminist development policy has a post-colonial anti-racist claim and relies on broad alliances in the international community and with civil society. At first glance, this policy appears to embrace an emancipatory, racism-critical and decolonial framework. However, without a clear strategy for implementation, it risks remaining a well-intended yet unrealized vision on paper. The crucial question remains: how can development cooperation move beyond its historical neoliberal and neocolonial approaches to become decolonial, critical, and reflexive? Addressing this question requires empirical research and practical applications that integrate insights from critical post-colonial and decolonial theories in the social sciences. More importantly, social development research must go beyond theory to inform decolonial practice, offering actionable strategies that challenge global inequalities, economic dependencies, and structural injustices. Scholars Maldonado Torres and Ndlovu Gacheni outline 3 central aspects of decolonial analysis: the coloniality of power, which involves critiquing the Eurocentric, Christian, and patriarchal structure of the modern global system of power; the coloniality of knowledge, which examines how knowledge production remains dominated by Western epistemologies, erasing local and indigenous way of knowing; and the coloniality of being, that addresses how colonialism has shaped identity, self-perception, and social hierarchies, deeply embedding cognitive injustice into societies. In Epistemic Freedom in Africa, Ndlovu Gacheni further explores the concept of empire through 3 interrelated dimensions: the physical empire, which means the direct colonial conquest and administration of territories; the commercial non-territorial empire, also known as neocolonialism, where economic exploitation and dominance persist even after formal independence; and the cognitive empire, the mental colonization of the oppressed, replacing African historical consciousness with European thought. This internalized coloniality, described by Ashish Nandi as the intimate enemy, remains a profound and often invisible form of oppression. Cognitive injustice as a form of social injustice emerges from the systemic denial of the humanity of marginalized people. This epistemic colonization, though more complex to identify, remains a major barrier to true decolonization. A critical reflection on social work practice reveals troubling patterns that reinforce colonial structures rather than dismantling them. Social workers in the global north often claim to operate within a human rights framework, aiming for emancipation and liberation. However, they rarely examine how welfare states in the north, funded in part through neo-colonial resource exploitation in the global south, are complicit in global inequalities. Meanwhile, social workers in the global south, particularly those engaged in Western-funded development and humanitarian projects, risk becoming instruments of colonial continuity. As critical scholars have highlighted, they often uncritically accept and collaborate with global North welfare states, despite their reliance on wealth generated through exploitative investments in the global South. And they participate in non-emancipatory development and humanitarian programs, which not only silence the voices of marginalized communities, but actively work against legitimate protest movements, seeking justice and sovereignty over their own sources. For social work and development cooperation to change, they must go beyond symbolic statements and gestures and critically engage with some of the historical and structural forces shaping communities' life worlds. Participatory action research comes with some tools for radical reflexivity and at least a commitment to systemic change. As I started to engage into participatory action research in Mozambique, some personal questions about my participation in development programs emerged. I started to recognize that working as a social worker and researcher from the global north in Mozambique since 2000 has profoundly reshaped my perspectives and practices, at least in 4 key ways. My understanding of my own privilege as a German researcher has evolved, leading me to critically assess how economic and structural advantages shape my research dynamics, partnerships, and relationships. Engaging with local realities, histories, and struggles has deepened my grasp of the interwoven challenges of post-coloniality, including economic dependency, systemic inequalities, and the persistent coloniality of power, knowledge, and being. The lived realities of communities, their resistance strategies, and evolving social structures have challenged my perception of hope. Hope and justice, and the urgency to act now. These transformations raise critical questions. Why this transformation? What and who else has been transformed? And how has this transformation been recognized? What are the social and economic changes that occurred, and what can be learned for international social work? These questions have become more pressing in recent months as I increasingly recognize the synergies and tensions between privilege, power, and the social hierarchies that participatory action research seeks to dismantle. In Mozambique, the research and project approach was thus guided by the following questions. At the project level, to what extent do the strategies of the project, particularly community organized in cash transfers to groups guided by local moral values, or to facilitate the integration of internally displaced people in the project area, which is Nacala Porto and the neighborhoods of Naharenge, Triangulo Bay, and Murupilane. And more at the research level, the question was, What are the lines and spaces of synergy and tension inherent in this process? Inspired by Paulo Freire's approach, participatory action research seeks to break down colonial structures by embracing collaborative ontologies and various rationalities, valuing local and indigenous knowledge as legitimate sources of understanding, and creating spaces for consciousness building and solidarity against neocolonial exploitation. The motivation to adapt past strategies emerged from the previously mentioned considerable and deep limitations of dominant social development approaches to confront a world in crisis. As the research was directly involving an NGO-led development project, furthermore, monitoring and evaluation played a crucial role as well. They shape project objectives are defined, how project objectives are defined and assessed in conventional development projects. Monitoring and evaluation are often exclusively shaped by the expectations of international donors, who determine what is evaluated and how efficiency and impact are defined, and whether funding is continued, reduced, or entirely cut. These centralized hierarchical approaches contribute to the ongoing colonization of life worlds, of those involved at community level, mirroring the coloniality of power, knowledge, and being. To challenge these dynamics, the past strategy had to be deeply integrated into the participatory monitoring and evaluation approach of the project. Indeed, most development projects fail to acknowledge power-related conflicts among mainly international donors who used to set the agenda, national and local project partners who have to navigate pressures from above and below, and community members who often find themselves excluded from decision-making. Traditional monitoring and evaluation frameworks attempt to erase or neutralize these conflicts and power relationships, rather than engage with them constructively. However, conflicts are inseparable from emancipatory and decolonial approaches. They are not just inevitable, but necessary. The real challenge is not avoiding conflicts, but rather finding constructive and creative ways to address them within social work and community development practice. Oh. It seems that my slides are no longer moving. I have a sign that Florian is taking over.
I'm not taking over.
Your MacBook, your nice laptop.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, thank you. So following this point of thought, in 2022, a participatory action research strategy was developed for the project I accompanied, ensuring that methods were context-specific and adapted to the realities of Nacala neighborhoods. They were culturally rooted and centered on local civil society, including religious and cultural groups and representatives of internally displaced people. And importantly, they were also designed to be conflict sensitive. They were designed to address social tensions and economic precarities in displaced, affected communities. The key participatory methods that were applied included participatory mapping, which helped to identify key civil society actors, the formation of socially diverse reference groups, which aimed to ensure a broad range of voices were included into any kind of decision-making in the process. Future creating workshops were run, which supported defining social and economic initiatives that were later on funded through group-based cash transfers and helped to identify social and economic initiatives. Interreligious ceremonies were used frequently to strengthen social cohesion between IDPs and host families. And critical feedback sessions were also accompanying this process, and reference groups provided direct critique to both the project and research teams and mainly actually aiming to improve, in particular, the cash transfer administrative procedures from the NGO. Importantly as well, participatory conflict and gender analysis was applied and supportive to developing conflict transformation strategy, which mainly incorporated arts-based and cultural sensitive approaches. And importantly, internal accountability sessions were taking place almost on a weekly and monthly basis at different levels, creating transparency on the use of cash transfers, fostering relational accountability and trust. These strategies aim to dismantle top-down development approaches, as I was referring to them previously, by ensuring that power, decision-making, and knowledge production remained in the hands of the project reference groups. A combined model of community organizing and cash transfer was developed by the local project coordinator, who was a religious leader, Sheikh Hafiz Shamu. This model emphasizes the interdependence of social and economic interventions, recognizing that economic support must be embedded in social structures to create sustainable impact. You can see some examples of social and economic initiatives that were identified, designed, and implemented by reference groups in the communities and funded by the direct group-based cash transfers on the bottom of the slide. Now here you can see a very complex picture, which I'm not going to explain in detail. I leave it to your fantasy to understand how this was working in practice, and it does. It shows an approach here that was adaptable to conflict-affected contexts, as particularly requested from members of the reference groups, in particular, of course, the IDPs, as it accounts for the mobility needs of displaced people, ensuring flexibility in support mechanisms in terms of space and time. And furthermore, at an epistemological level, the project approach has been rooted in African development philosophy and moral values. In Makua, the local language, Ubuntu is called Otu. Otu represents the moral and ethical foundation guiding social and economic initiatives that were identified during the future creating workshops. Practically, it ensures that cash transfers align with community values, promoting collective responsibility and the group's self-determination. More generally, this model aims to represent an alternative to conventional aid and welfare programs by centering African philosophy and local agency in development practice. Now, some results through the eyes of the involved community, and I will finally read some selected direct quotes from members of the community reference groups that were co-researchers in this process. I captured them during the final project evaluation workshop that was going on just last month. This project, someone said, works outside the system. Many thought it was an error, but now we know it is right. This is related to the fact that the group-based direct cash transfers were given to local communities. They were purchasing anything they needed on the informal market, which raised a lot of problems because the NGO was insisting in legal formal receipts and an administrative system, but being able to be part of developing their ideas and themselves actually buying and implementing and driving the initiatives was for them really outside the system because they only knew top-down NGO approaches where projects was given to them, including all the ingredients. Another statement was, if we are not the ones helping, how can we be recognized? Again, I find this very important, having in mind that many NGO projects are implemented in the top-down way that I was trying to explain. And it's such a logic to say, how can we be recognized as a local civil society if not ourselves are actually the ones that help others in our own communities. Another statement was it increased access to people we didn't have before. Again, that's very important because it has to do with networking, social relationships, and accountability, and being able to step one step further in their own community visions. And the statement with the initiatives we can look to the future, of course, is also a result of the future creating workshops that were implemented, and the fact that they have a lot of confidence now to realize some of the ideas that they identified. And to talk about local advocacy energies, I think the last two quotes are very clear as well. Somebody said, one person's wound is everyone's wound. That reflects as well Otu and Ubuntu. And internally displaced women said, which I found very strong, I was defended by the group. The displaced people experienced discrimination when they came to their host communities, as discrimination exists all around the world. And the fact that she was defended by local residents is a very good result. So whilst there are encouraging recognitions, there have also been lines of synergy that facilitated these results, but necessarily waves of tension and conflicts. The following are some examples of preliminary issues emerging. And I try to artificially divide them between synergies and tensions. Sometimes issues might overlap, and what might be a synergy moves into a tension for somebody else. So community organizing supported by action research created horizontal and vertical relational accountability, which was necessary for downward accountability of NGOs to reference groups and internal group control of social and economic initiatives funded by direct cash transfers. On the other side, and I've mentioned it before, the NGO culture of administrative control, but as well moments of mistrust from the research team towards the culture and capacities of community reference groups led to various delays in the transfer of cash and the implementation of initiatives for improving well-being. On the other side, synergies. The piloted approach brought decolonial thinking and participatory approaches in the so-called development industry together. A strong informal educational strategy was necessary to provoke debates about societal divisions and bring about female and IDP leadership. Strongest dividers were educational background, religion, and place of origin. All of these divisions intersected. The community reference groups developed analytical capacities about the social problems facing their communities and existing dividing structures from within and outside, and were able to quite strongly confront them. The project and the research teams hardly overcame their lines of division. The research team's questioning of the capacity and transparency of the local team, led predominantly by Muslim, non-academic and locally resident members, increased the distance between the project and the research team. The latter tried to resolve the felt tension through administrative gestures rather than dialogue and reflection. The past strategies on the synergetic side and methods supported the project's adaptation to the almost endless contextual challenges faced by members of the reference groups, especially the external context, providing the much-needed flexibility and critical reflexivity. On the other side, the increased analysis and response capacity from reference groups and their autonomy and self-determination led to moments of intimidations from the authoritarian Mozambican state party regime, aiming to subordinate or incorporate the groups into a government control system. Last but not least, the various tropical storms and cyclones that I have mentioned earlier, which has swept over the project area, created solidarity out of hardship. The self-determined initiatives funded by cash transfer took into account climate vulnerability. So far, none of the initiatives have suffered from climate-related consequences, as they are protected based on high ownership of the involved groups and their local knowledge. On the other side, the multiple crises affected the project region led to 2 no-cost extensions for the project, associated with administrative procedures, again delaying the cash transfers. Whilst the crisis led to increased immediate needs of the reference group members, they were unable to access the money because of administrative barriers for a while. Now, analyzing the tensions, and I'm coming slowly to the end, and conflicts that emerged between the research team and the project implementation team, as well as between some members of the research team and the reference groups in the neighborhoods, reveals deeper structural and epistemic divides. These tensions can be understood through the concept of collective colonization of the mind. As Ndlovu Gacheni describes, cognitive empire has shaped a post-colonial university system in Mozambique that privileges Western principles of objectivity, distance, neutrality, and supposed academic superiority. This has led to an obsession with academic titles, which are often used as instruments of power. Several attempts to subjugate local knowledge and prove its wrongness was based on the rejection of local people's rationalities. Mistrust between Christians and Muslims, which intersected with place of origin, further deepened tensions, also primarily between the research and project implementation team members. Contrary to this, the diverse reference groups, which regularly celebrated interreligious values ingrained into the African development philosophy OTU, supported by the local project coordinator who was a religious leader himself, overcame some societal divisions and acted against various forms of discrimination and exclusion. Now, caught in the middle of these tensions, I often had to take a stand. While I frequently aligned myself with the reference groups and the local project team, I was also hunted by Ward's critical question. Was I arming them with new weapons with which to fight their ongoing oppression, or was I perpetuating the oppression myself with my own brand of Eurocentrism? As we reflect on the intersection of social work, coloniality, and epistemic justice, I leave you with the following questions. How can social work initiate a deeper reflection on the colonial metrics of power and its own complicity in it? How can we apply critical thinking without reinforcing Western rationality as the only valid framework for knowledge? Why are the generative themes of violence and war not taken more seriously in social work? And how can we overcome the culture of silence that surrounds them? Is there inherent hypocrisy in the human rights discourse when linked to power and interest in Africa? Can we do less individual casework and community services and instead strengthen our role in informal education and transformative research with silenced and marginalized communities to collectively overcome the colonization of the mind? What can we learn from participatory action research to rethink and expand ethical narratives in social work, breaking free from the rigid constraints of Western-dominated human rights frameworks? These questions challenge us to rethink social work's role, methodologies, and ethical commitments in a world where neocolonialism, epistemic injustice, and global inequalities continue to shape our practice and policy. Thank you very much for listening such a long time.
Thank you so much, Tanja, for this inspiring talk. Thanks a lot. I found it particularly inspiring how it challenges our, or at least my, probably often without intention, very, as you said before, Eurocentric perspective. Now, even though We are a little bit delayed, you know, but we still have time for some questions and discussion. So I believe we do have some microphones running around right now. Hopefully we have. And so if there's any questions in the audience, maybe please just raise your hands. And then some of my colleagues will come up to you with the microphone. It's hard to see. Thank you so much. Yes. Maybe I'm overlooking somebody. Oh, okay. Cohen, thank you so much. Over here, second row to my right. Oh, sorry, I overlooked somebody. Yep, that's fine. Liz, maybe?
Thank you very much, Tanya, for that. Thank you for that very challenging account of your participatory research in Mozambique. It sounded like some of the problems are coming from the university sector in Mozambique. And I'm wondering what work some of us need to do alongside our colleagues in Africa to challenge their appropriation or taking of the Western mindset, and how that can be done. And have you been able to do that at all, or is it too difficult because you're focusing on the local community-based research, and the African universities have a status and a power that it's quite difficult to challenge in that context?
Oh, thanks, Sarah, for this important question, which was indeed affecting me a lot throughout the 3 years. And I initially have been very silent in this because I thought it was necessary to, of course, give the Mozambican research team the necessary leadership in this process, until at some point I found out that I might have more in common, on some of the courses that we were trying to address with the local team and the local reference groups. And of course, I have discussed this with several colleagues from universities in Mozambique, and some of them are aware of it. And we were actually designing a project. We were trying to design a project, and UNESCO was interested to fund it on decolonizing some of the curricula of the courses, especially social work and social sciences courses. But within this process of designing proposals and developing ideas and writing proposals, the many hurricanes and cyclones were rushing over the country, and because of these very difficult circumstances, the colleagues were not able to advance with the project, for example. And I'm caught up in being limited as well to advance it, being a European researcher. So we have to give ourselves a lot of patience, but essentially the issue of decolonizing the curriculum is a global agenda. It should apply in the north, in the south, and I guess here in the north we have more time to dedicate to it than our colleagues in the global south. That's one of the reasons, the permanent crisis, I guess. But there is interest, there are interesting initiatives now, but interestingly as well, the more remote universities are, and I was working with a quite remote university team, the more they are actually entangled into Western thoughts and methodologies, because in the more urban areas, people are used to travel and have more exchanges and spaces for discussion in the country. Yeah. It's a big dilemma.
Very, very challenging presentation, and these questions are not easy questions to answer. They are crucial for this conference, I think. So thank you for raising them, and thank you for forcing us to reflect upon them. I'm really interested and enthusiastic about the fact that you are really transparent also on the tensions of the participatory action research. And this is not typically, I think, for participatory action research in the global south, but it's also applicable to what we are doing in the European context. And what you see is actually these macro structures and structural inequalities are influencing your participatory action research. And in the end, you see that you are aiming for systemic change, but at the same time, you have to be honest, and you see how these structural inequalities are truly shaping the practice that you're doing. And it makes me reflect a lot about what is the aim of participatory action research. And you mentioned in the beginning that it's contributing to systemic change, and I'm sharing this assumption. And at the same time, I'm quite critical about it, as you also have shown in the tensions that you have made explicit. So what can we learn from participatory action research, but also what can we learn, or what can we learn from your research on the limitations of participatory action research is my question.
Well, it's a question that I was hoping we can discuss during the conference. Of course, there are lessons learned. And one of the issues Sarah was mentioning, the decolonization really of university systems, education is a very crucial arm in this fight, really. And we need to be upfront as well, as you said, with the ultimate aim of participatory action research is to dismantle unjust power relationships, and we need to be able to go out of our comfort zones. And for a while, and this, I mean, means all of us, researchers, North, South, students, community workers, we need to be able to share the lives of people that experience these structural injustices. And at least in my case, that's where I get the energy to continue working. If I would stay in my university office teaching all of the time, I would certainly not make it to continue, implementing this type of research with the objectives that I've outlined without getting frustrated. And I've also reflected quite a lot about the meaninglessness of hope. It is very important that we ground ourselves into realities and move really from one day to the other with this, and try to be realistic. I mean, that's something that you have said as well, and what I am working on is to see the challenges and the conflicts that emerge and make them part of the process, rather than your frustration and as a result give up. That's what I can say spontaneously. and I still have to process a lot and write a lot, including a 3-year report that is ahead of me. I think it's late, isn't it? People might be tired.
Maybe one last question. Yes.
Okay, brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you for your excellent keynote. You ask really important critical questions about the human rights framework in social work. And I'm wondering, could you maybe elaborate a bit further? What should we do with human rights discourse in social work, in your opinion? Should we abandon it because it's kind of colonial? Or should we somehow rethink it, decolonize it, and how could it be done? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for this important question that I was almost expecting. Of course, we should not give up or dismantle human rights. But my point is that we need to see human rights through the eyes of the people that are affected from war, conflict, exploitation, climate crisis. And the needs and the rights that are affected are quite different from the rights that ourselves would consider as crucial. There were substantial discussions during this project because there was another one that was focusing on mental health and psychosocial support for IDPs. And as you have seen, the process I was involved in included as well unconditional group-based cash transfers. So we had really the opportunity to provide funding for initiatives of the people that were involved. But there were a lot of discussions. Is it more important to do trauma and counseling work, or is it more important to provide essential, provide for the essential needs of those most affected, which is usually housing, food, water, and the like. So strictly spoken, and I think I'm following Jim Ivey's approach here, human rights from below, yeah? It is a way to decolonize our understanding of universal human rights, based as well on the fact what I was saying previously, in regions that have colonial continuities, it is quite easy because of social hierarchies to overcome the essential needs of those that are most excluded and focus on trauma and psychosocial support when people don't know what to eat tomorrow, for example. These were real discussions we had in the project teams. I don't know if I responded fully, but that's also spoken from my experience.
Now, I'm very sorry to set an end to this right now because I feel your challenging talk deserves way more time to be discussed. Thank you so much for coming over and kicking off this conference, content-wise. We also have some little something for you, again, a gingerbread with the conference logo for you to eat or hang up on your wall, I don't know. Thank you so much, Tanya. Okay, now I can see some tired faces, but I can help you. Because next up, there's the General Assembly of Ezra. So if you want to know what the board, for instance, has been done throughout the last year, just stay in your seat and keep listening. I want to say thank you to the Fat Cat team, Niklas, Florian, everyone else who helped us out with the venue, and the student helpers. Thank you so much. Don't go away too far. So usually there's a longer break, but now due to postponing this session here, we won't postpone our welcome reception. So we will now have the GA in here, but maybe you want to, if you don't want to stay here, you want to take a walk outside, grab some food, I don't know. But at 7:30, so it's only in 40 minutes, in the lounge outside, we will have the welcome reception. We will have drinks and food, a flying buffet for you. So other than that, thank you so much for showing up here, for coming here. I wish you a fruitful and inspiring and great conference throughout the next 2 days. Thank you so much. Have a good night.